Unit 4, Brokerage Relationships, Transaction Broker versus Single Agent and Disclosures. Hi, I'm Anisha, your AI study partner with License to Learn. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, License Closet, for supporting this video. License Closet offers an affordable way to hang your real estate license for just $149.99 per year, with no MLS required. This is a great option for agents who want to stay active, keep learning, and build at their own pace. You'll find the link below. This video is for educational purposes only. Florida real estate laws, rules, and procedures can change, so always verify current requirements through official Florida sources before relying on this information. This content is Florida specific and is a study guide, not a substitute for completing a state-approved course. Now, let's get into today's lesson. Unit 4, Brokerage Relationships, Duties, and Disclosures, Florida Exam Points. Today's unit is how Florida asks, who do you represent, what do you owe, and when must you say it? Think of this like choosing a lane before you drive. Lane 1, transaction broker. Lane 2, single agent. Lane 3, no brokerage relationship. If you can identify the lane, the duties become predictable and the exam becomes easier. Big Florida rule, a real estate licensee may act as either a transaction broker or a single agent. Dual agency is not allowed in Florida brokerage relationships. Pause and answer. If nothing is set up in writing, what lane does Florida presume you're in? Key terms. You must know customer, a member of the public who may or may not be represented. Principal, the buyer or seller who has hired the broker in an agency relationship. This is the client in the single agent lane. Fiduciary, a relationship of trust and confidence. On the exam, fiduciary means you owe loyalty-type duties. Single agent, a broker who represents, as a fiduciary, either the buyer or the seller, but not both in the same transaction. Transaction broker, a broker who provides limited representation to a buyer, a seller, or both, but not in a fiduciary capacity. In this relationship, the parties give up the right to the undivided loyalty of the licensee. Exam tip. If the question says loyalty, you are in single agent territory. If it says limited representation, you are in transaction broker territory. The Florida default. This is a test favorite. Florida presumes licensees are operating as transaction brokers unless 1. A single agent relationship is established in writing, or 2. A no brokerage relationship is established in writing. So if the exam gives you a story with no paperwork and asks what relationship exists, your default answer is transaction broker. Also remember, Florida does not require a customer to enter into any brokerage relationship at all. Pause and answer. A licensee is helping a buyer and a seller, and nothing is in writing. What relationship is presumed? Lane. 1. Transaction broker duties. Memorize this list. A transaction broker provides limited representation and owes these duties. 1. Deal honestly and fairly. 2. Account for all funds. 3. Use skill, care, and diligence. 4. Disclose all known facts that materially affect the value of residential real property and are not readily observable to the buyer. 5. Present all offers and counteroffers in a timely manner, unless a party directs otherwise in writing. 6. Limited confidentiality, unless waived in writing. 7. Perform any additional duties that are mutually agreed to in writing. Limited confidentiality, what you do not reveal. The seller will accept less than the listing price. The buyer will pay more than the offer. A party's motivation. A party will accept different financing terms. Any other info requested to remain confidential. Exam trap. Transaction broker does not mean no duties. It's a full duty list, just not fiduciary loyalty. Lane 2. Single agent fiduciary duties plus timing. Single agent duties include deal honestly and fairly, loyalty, confidentiality, obedience, lawful instructions, full disclosure, accounting for all funds, skill, care, and diligence. Present all offers, counteroffers timely, unless directed otherwise in writing. Disclose known facts that materially affect the value of residential real property and are not readily observable. The timing rule, major exam trigger, single agent duties must be disclosed in writing before or at entering into a listing agreement or representation agreement, or before showing property, whichever happens first. Transition rule, a single agent relationship may be changed to a transaction broker relationship only with the principal's prior written consent before the change. Pause and answer. If you're a single agent and the buyer wants you to help both sides, what must you get before switching lanes? Lane 3, no brokerage relationship, non-representation. No brokerage relationship means you have not formed a brokerage relationship with that customer, but you still owe duties. Duties include 1. Deal honestly and fairly. 2. Disclose all known facts that materially affect the value of residential real property and are not readily observable to the buyer. 3. Account for all funds entrusted to the licensee. Notice timing, very testable. The no brokerage relationship notice must be disclosed in writing before the showing of property. When this whole disclosure system applies, these required disclosures are tied to residential sale, which includes improved residential property of 4 units or fewer, unimproved residential property intended for 4 units or fewer, agricultural property of 10 acres or fewer. Pause and answer. No brokerage relationship notice must be given when disclosures do not apply. Exam uses these as traps. Disclosure requirements generally do not apply in situations like non-residential transactions. Most rentals, leasing, special rules apply if there is an option to purchase certain small residential property. Open house or model home showings that do not involve confidential info, contracts, or negotiations. Unanticipated casual conversations that do not involve confidential info, contracts, or negotiations. Responding to general factual questions about advertised property, communications limited to the licensee's qualifications or services, auctions and appraisals, business opportunities with certain exceptions, exam strategy. If the story is open house, just handing out flyers, the question may be testing whether disclosure is required in that moment. Pause and answer. Does every open house automatically trigger the disclosure documents? Yes or no? Advanced test topic. Designated sales associate. Commercial rule. Designated sales associate applies only when the transaction is not a residential sale and the buyer and seller have assets of $1 million or more, and the customers request designated sales associates. In that case, the broker may designate different sales associates to act as single agents for different customers in the same transaction with specific disclosure rules. Quick reminders that show up on exams. Sales associates act under the direction, control, or management of the broker. Be careful with implied agency ideas. Your actions and words can create expectations, so clarity and proper written disclosures matter. Pause and answer. Designated sales associate is used for residential sales, right? Yes or no? Rapid exam drill. Answer out loud. 1. Florida presumes what relationship if nothing is in writing? Transaction broker. 2. Is dual agency allowed in Florida? No. 3. Name 3 transaction broker duties. Deal honestly and fairly. Account for all funds. Present all offers and counteroffers in a timely manner, unless directed otherwise in writing. 4. What does limited confidentiality protect? It protects a party's confidential information, such as the seller will accept less than the listing price, the buyer will pay more than the offer, either party's motivation, or that a party will accept different financing terms. 5. Single agent disclosure must be given by what point in time? before or at signing the listing agreement or representation agreement, or before showing property, whichever happens first. 6. What is required to transition from single agent to transaction broker? The principal's prior written consent before the change. 7. No brokerage relationship notice must be delivered when? In writing, before the showing of property. 8. Residential sale includes how many units or fewer? 4 units or fewer. 9. Agricultural property is included up to how many acres? 10 acres or fewer. 10. Designated sales associate is tied to what type of transaction and what asset threshold? A transaction other than a residential sale, non-residential, and both buyer and seller have assets of $1 million or more, and the customers request designated sales associates. Welcome to Key Terms, where we turn real estate words into real estate understanding. Let's begin. Unit 4 Key Terms, Brokerage Relationships, Duties, and Disclosures. This unit is where Florida exam questions turn into what relationship is this? What duties apply? And when did you have to disclose it? Here's your test strategy. Step 1, identify the relationship lane. Step 2, match the duty list. Step 3, check the disclosure timing. Florida has 2 authorized brokerage relationships, transaction broker and single agent. Florida does not authorize dual agency. Pause and answer. If nothing is in writing, what relationship does Florida presume? Answer. Transaction broker. Florida presumes transaction broker unless single agent or no brokerage relationship is established in writing. Term. Agency is a relationship where one person is authorized to act for another. In real estate, this can create fiduciary duties. Term. Agent. An agent is the one acting on behalf of another. On the exam, agent usually signals higher duties, especially fiduciary duties. Term. Principal, also called client. The principal is the party who hired the broker in an agency relationship. If you see principal, you are usually in single agent territory. Term. Customer. A customer is a member of the public who is a buyer or seller but may or may not be represented. Customer does not automatically mean fiduciary duties. Term. Fiduciary means trust plus responsibility. On the exam, fiduciary, a loyalty type duties. Wrong answer magnet, calling every buyer seller a client. Not true. They are a client only when a single agent relationship exists. Pause and answer. If the question says loyalty, what relationship lane is it hinting at? Answer. Single agent loyalty, fiduciary duty, single agent lane. Term. Brokerage relationship. A brokerage relationship is the relationship between a real estate licensee through the broker and a buyer or seller. Florida requires clarity about what relationship exists. Term. Authorized brokerage relationships. Florida recognizes 1. Transaction broker, 2. Single agent. And it also recognizes the option of no brokerage relationship, non-representation. Term. Dual agent, dual agency. A dual agent represents both buyer and seller as a fiduciary in the same transaction. Florida does not authorize this for real estate licensees. Term. Presumption, default relationship. Florida presumes you are a transaction broker unless a single agent relationship or a no brokerage relationship is established in writing. Exam trigger phrases: nothing was signed. No disclosure was provided. What relationship exists? Pause and answer. No paperwork, helping both sides. What relationship is presumed? Answer. Transaction broker. No paperwork, may. Presumed transaction broker. Term. Transaction broker. A transaction broker provides limited representation to a buyer, a seller, or both, but does not represent either as a fiduciary. This is Florida's default. Term. Non-fiduciary. Non-fiduciary means you do not owe full loyalty the way an agent does. Term. Undivided loyalty. In a transaction broker relationship, the parties give up the right to undivided loyalty. Term, transaction broker duties, must know list. A transaction broker must deal honestly and fairly, account for all funds, use skill, care, and diligence, disclose known facts that materially affect value of residential real property and are not readily observable to the buyer, present all offers and counteroffers timely, unless directed otherwise in writing, maintain limited confidentiality, unless waived in writing, perform additional duties agreed to in writing. Term, limited confidentiality, what you don't reveal. You do not reveal things like what price a seller will accept, what a buyer will pay, motivation, or alternate financing terms unless confidentiality is waived in writing. Pause and answer. Transaction broker means no duties, true or false. Answer, false. Transaction broker has a full duty list. It's just non-fiduciary. Term, single agent. A single agent represents, as a fiduciary, either the buyer or the seller, but not both in the same transaction. Term, fiduciary duties, single agent duty set. Single agent duties include deal honestly and fairly, loyalty, confidentiality, obedience to lawful instructions, full disclosure, accounting for all funds, skill, care, and diligence, present all offers, counteroffers timely, unless directed otherwise in writing. Disclose known material facts affecting value that are not readily observable to the buyer. Term, single agent disclosure timing. The single agent duties must be disclosed in writing before or at entering into the listing representation agreement or before the showing of property, whichever occurs first. Term, transition, single agent to transaction broker. A single agent may change to a transaction broker only with the principal's prior written consent before the change. Pause and answer. If you want to switch from single agent to transaction broker, what must you get first? Answer, the principal's prior written consent to transition from single agent to transaction broker. Term, no brokerage relationship, non-representation. This means you have not formed a brokerage relationship with the customer, but you still owe certain duties. Term, no brokerage relationship duties. Even without representation, you must deal honestly and fairly, disclose known facts that materially affect value of residential real property and are not readily observable to the buyer, account for all funds entrusted to you. Term, no brokerage relationship notice timing. The notice must be provided in writing before the showing of property. Exam trigger phrase, before showing, is your timing alarm. Wrong answer magnet. Thinking, no brokerage relationship means no responsibilities. You still have duties. Pause and answer. When must the no brokerage relationship notice be delivered? Answer, before the showing of property, no brokerage relationship notice timing. Term, material fact, materially affects value. A material fact is a fact that would reasonably affect the property's value or a buyer's decision. Term, not readily observable. This means the buyer cannot easily see it through normal observation. If it's known to the licensee and not readily observable, it is in the disclosure lane. Term, residential sale definition matters. Florida's brokerage relationship disclosures apply to residential sales, including improved residential property of 4 units or fewer, unimproved residential property intended for 4 units or fewer, agricultural property of 10 acres or fewer exam numbers, 4 units or fewer, 10 acres or fewer, pause and answer, a 6-unit apartment building sale. Does that fit the residential sale definition for these disclosure requirements? Answer, no. 6 units exceeds the 4 units or fewer residential sale definition for these disclosure rules. Term, disclosure exceptions, when the disclosure requirements do not apply. The exam uses these as traps. Disclosure requirements generally do not apply in situations like non-residential transactions, many rental a lease situations, special rule if there's an option to purchase certain small residential property, open house model home, showings that do not involve confidential info, contracts, or negotiations, unanticipated casual conversations that do not involve confidential info, contracts, or negotiations, responding to general factual questions about advertised property, conversations limited to general info about a licensee's services, qualifications, auctions, and appraisals, exam strategy. If the story is open house, handing out flyers, the question may be testing whether disclosures were required right then. Pause and answer. Every open house requires the disclosure forms immediately. True or false? Answer. False. Open house situations can fall under exceptions when there's no confidential info, contracts, or negotiations. Before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who's preparing for the Florida real estate exam. If this lesson helped you, that tells me I'm doing my job. And if you're ready for more structured support, live instruction, and accountability, you're invited to join our online classes through License to Learn. You'll find the sign up link below. Keep showing up, keep studying, and keep building the future you're working toward. I'll see you in the next lesson. Florida laws and rules can change. Verify the most current requirements through the Florida statutes, Florida Administrative Code, DBPR, and the Florida Real Estate Commission.